Hi, how's it going? My name's Eric, bringing you another video. Today, I was investigating a little bit about what is the idea of belief and some elements behind it, some origins, and also the phenomenon where we've all in common, where we've all had, where if we feel challenged, somebody challenges a belief that we have, we feel defensive, like they're fighting us, like there's a threat there. And even though we've changed our beliefs over time, throughout our entire lives, we've gone from one belief to another, to another, and to another, based on the evidence we may have had or new experiences that have kind of changed our perspective and seeing things and our ideas of what reality is. Um, Still, if somebody comes on our beliefs, we feel like they're threatening us. Now, looking into that, we can maybe find some reasons why, and also some strategies to find out exactly what we believe and what we don't, and then find out how to ways to change those in a way that's most effective and suits our purposes and what we see as good, and pursue that and actualize it more and more however you want. So let's get into it. So looking at it, we've all had beliefs, of course. Now, since we've experienced however long we've been on this planet, right? We've all experienced and gathered information and assigned meaning to that information. We've contextualized these things together and we assert that it means blank. Now, you can have infinite amounts of information. There's infinite amount of information, infinite amount of facts, right? Then you can have an infinite amount of meanings, whether they're true or not, ascribed to those facts, right? You can have the same data and people value different parts of that data differently. They see different parts of the data differently, and then they ascribe what that means and extrapolate into the world totally differently. And a lot of very prominent people can look at the same stuff and come up with totally different conclusions. Um, so what we ascribe meaning to that information uh, is very, very individualized based on our beliefs. Okay. Now, let's get into the origin story of what is a belief. Well, a belief, so since we change our beliefs so much, if we change our beliefs, that doesn't mean we destroy ourselves. It doesn't mean we don't, if we're Homer Simpson, we don't fade into the bush of nothingness, right? No, we just go from one thought, one way of thinking, which is a process, way of thinking is a process, to another, right? So we could look at a belief as a system or a tool to actualize the good of what we want, of self-actualization, or some sort of better for us, right? Better for us. If we believe this, we will be better off. And we know, maybe that would be ascribed with happiness. So from that belief, we would get happiness if we actualized it. Now imagine the other direction. If we had a belief about something and it caused us anxiety or some sort of fear, right? And all fear can be traced back to death, right? Can be traced back to what we think is death. Like if this group has the power to ostracize me, then that might make my genes less likely to propagate and therefore death. So I don't want to mess up, and so therefore the environment's unsafe, and that's where social anxiety comes from, right? So it all goes back and it all traces back to some sort of destruction. Okay, so if we have a belief that something equals destruction, wouldn't we fear it? Yes. So what is that belief doing? Well, the belief is either helping us get where we want to go or helping us not destroy ourselves. So it's a tool to help us survive, right? And since we change our beliefs, we change our tools, right? And the tools are not the craftsmen, right? Just like the results of those tools are not the tools or the craftsman. They just, the craftsman uses the tools to actualize a result. So how can we use these tools to manifest the result that we want? Well, This is why. So imagine. So let's think about that conflict element of going head on. If somebody comes with, especially if somebody comes to my beliefs or whatever, even though I want to be refuted and I want to have the best possible information, the most knowledge, and gain the most wisdom so I can make better choices, if somebody comes after me right away, it's kind of off putting. It's crazy. Now I'm like, I know that this is good for me, that somebody's engaging me and cares enough about me to refute my arguments because they want me to exemplify closer to the truth, right? But why does that hurt? Why is that doing that? Well, if a belief is trying to protect you from death and somebody challenges that belief, then your subconscious mind is saying that they're attacking the process which is keeping you safe. So they're actually trying to destroy the thing that is keeping you safe and alive, which means that they're trying to threaten and destroy you. Because these tools help you survive in one way or another. And if somebody has dysfunctional, right, if somebody lives in a dysfunctional, imagine a dysfunctional, somebody develops dysfunctional habits. Those were actually functional to help them survive, to help the person survive, especially if they're talking about early childhood here and people have dysfunctional families. They develop these dysfunctional habits to keep them alive. But when they go into a new environment where it's better, and the dysfunction is not there anymore, the habit and the belief and the process in the system no longer fits, no longer works anymore. It's not beneficial. It's a detriment. So when somebody challenges that, the thing is that that person has no firsthand knowledge, especially okay, so if somebody challenges a belief, it's because they're trying to destroy the system that's keeping you safe. And that's why we feel that attachment to what we believe, which is crazy, which is cool, actually. So now, let's get into the idea of, okay, so if we're talking about Socrates here, and he said that he knows nothing. Well, knowing something, right? Knowing, of course he knew something. He knew something. Now, he probably knew, we all know only a finite amount, as much as we can. As much as we can. We have a capacity, of course, but we only know as much as we know, which is finite, of course. Only makes sense. But he was comparing it to the absolute principle of all knowledge in existence. Now, if you compared anything to the absolute principle of totality, wouldn't you also say that, or, I definitely know, for sure that I'd say I knew nothing, right? Because when you compare it to everything, everything seems so small, what we do, Life on Earth, comparison to the universe, is small, right? So when we gain that perspective, that huge perspective, it feels like we know nothing. Now, even though Socrates knew some and probably was the wisest man, I know that's kind of how the myth goes, that the Oracle of Delphi named him the wisest man on the planet, right? Or wisest man ever. The thing is, in comparison to the absolute, he knew nothing, but he actually knew as much as he knew. A finite amount. And we all know a finite amount. Okay. So that's why, if we all know a finite amount, then we have the perspective and the thing, well, we only know so much. We only, we have all this out here, but we only have this. So wouldn't it be better to acquire more, to know more, to gain a bigger perspective, to experience more things, and to grow, right? Well, wouldn't that also be a meta belief that would be over top of it? That would say, well, if people challenge my beliefs, that actually means something better is going to come around. That if we use reason, logic, and evidence to refute contradictions, which can't happen in nature, then we're going to get something better. And so the philosophers and the wise, what we considered wise or whatever, they would remove, then that belief would allow them to remove the attachment of thinking that my beliefs are me. That if somebody attacks my beliefs, they're attacking me, right? But if they're using logic and evidence and reason, and it's, you know, and the results are great, I'd stand to benefit and grow as a human being, as a thinking being, that if I take those processes within myself and I accept those arguments or uh, reformulate them so they're coherent, then I'd be better off. Then we can actually have a proper relationship with our tools, our beliefs, and not be stuck with them in a particular mode and not exemplify what we truly want, what we truly desire. Now, there's also the element that we can say something but not believe it, right? Imagine you're sitting there, you woke up super early one morning, and you were working all day or doing something all day, and at the very end, you were at this, I don't want to say party, or you were at a social networking event, right? And you're just about to leave so that you can like literally just fall over and fall asleep and not worry about anything tomorrow. And then somebody at 10 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, he's like, oh, I have one more person to introduce you. And you're just like, you can visibly see your eyes are super red. The bags under your eyes are just like that. You're kind of like, oh, you can like, I don't know if I can get home. Like, oh my gosh, And then they introduce you, and then you're just like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Now you smiled as much as you could. You said, nice to meet you. I'm glad to meet you. But we've all had that sensation. Right after we say something, we've all had this, right? Right after you say something, there's like this feeling that we say that's like, no, no. Or like this back of your head is like, no, you really don't. Right? It's like this feeling or sensation or maybe something in the back of your head, back of your mind, where you're just like, you know what? I'd rather be sleeping right now than because of all these things coming together, right? Now, on a normal day, if you were full of energy, of course that'd be different. But the thing is, you're at that point, you really didn't believe it, right? Now you said something different, but you really didn't believe that. So it's now imagine that system was deeper, right? So we can all say that we do something in a specific situation, and then when that situation comes up, we act totally differently. Well, did we truly believe what we said? Well, we might have thought that we actually would have done that, but we didn't know, right? It's the difference about knowing, like if you believe something and you'll act on it subconsciously, because you have your conscious mind, your awareness mind, and then everything else automatic processes, right? Now, if your automatic processes are programmed and wired a specific way based on choice, thought, things that you think about, if you think about something a long time, it starts showing up in your dreams, starts going into the subconscious and starts becoming a part of your just systems, right? Just becomes a part of you eventually, right? And then over time, you'll act automatically and you'll realize, wow, I didn't think about that before I did that, but that would have been the way that I would have thought about doing that I wouldn't have done before. So it's like you're programming the belief into your subconscious mind so that it acts automatically, right? Your subconscious mind knew exactly how you felt and that you really didn't, and that your true belief was, I didn't want to talk because I'm so tired. Okay? So now that we have a sense of what belief is, okay, it's a system, it's a tool that we use to get a better result, right? So sometimes our beliefs can hold us back. Sometimes our tools don't get us the way that we want to, or we can't, like you don't use a screwdriver to nail in nails. You have to use a different tool, right? You have to use a different tool. So if we gain an attachment and we can't let go of a tool for another one, then we have a problem, right? Because, to use a different tool. You want to have and maximize the benefit for you, which is great. So how do we do that? Well, there might be an emotion connected with a specific tool, especially if you start using logic and reason to negate because I've been doing this. I had a few beliefs about like a few fears that were totally irrational, and so what you can do is that instead of using because what happens is that we see a result that we like more than the result that we have. Perfect. Then we see the person exemplifying the behavior that gets that result. Okay, as much as we can tell. Then, but the thing is, our entire life we've gained all this experience validating one particular thought that isn't that. Right? So we have a bunch of evidence to support something that isn't what we want. Okay, so now what do? Well, we have a bunch of secondary source referential information. Now that's not bad. We can use logic and reason to compare everything together and to actually discern whether it does lead to result. It does. Let's just pretend it does. Now we're stuck. Okay, now what? Like everything that I've done to this point has never done any of that. How do I know? How do you know? How does anybody know whether that behavior, if I exemplify it, will actually lead to this? Uncertainty. Right? Now imagine, so there's a certain amount of trust that you would have to go, well, I'm just going to exemplify the behavior and see what happens. You don't have any firsthand knowledge of the behavior itself and translating into the result, right? So you have so imagine picking up an instrument for the first time and trying to play a super killing solo that you just picked up from a record. I would have, like, if I picked up a guitar or a saxophone, I would have no idea where to start. I'd be like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What does this button do? Is that the correct one? Is this the best way to do it? I don't know what to value. I don't know what to value. I don't know what to try. Do I do this? Do I do this? Do I look at a fingering chart? Do I trust this video? Do I trust that video? Do I talk to this person? Oh, wow. Wow. Now, that's a lot of uncertainty. Now, what is uncertainty? Why do people hate uncertainty? Well, if you're looking at a bottomless chasm, there could be millions of dollars worth of gold or spikes that will kill you on impact. Now, if your belief system and your body and your mind is trying to protect you from death, uncertainty about whether this thing will be super beneficial or will kill you is not exactly a predicament your body wants to get you in, right? Not exactly a bet that it wants to, I'm going all in. That's not really what your body really wants to do. And so there's that fear. Now that fear protects you from death, okay? Now there's this element of trust, right? So if that fear and all of this together, well, what is trust? What is faith? Well, faith is where you step out, you have no firsthand knowledge of, right? Now you see the results. You're not doing it stupidly. You don't do random things, right? You have the result. You have the behaviors that you've logically associated with that result. But now you're trying, you're getting this secondary source information. Now you're trying to actualize primary source information, actual experience, actual evidence to validate that new system, that new tool, that new skill set that you're trying to bring in. Make sense? So when we go out on trust and we actually do it, then that belief will have firsthand evidence to support it, and therefore the more that we do it, the more evidence we gather and the more validation that new belief, that new system, that new tool that we'll have at our disposal will maintain as a tool that we can use perpetually and grow and actually exemplify the things that we want and get the things that we want. Sound great? So we use beliefs as a tool to get what we want. Now, It's just that if we can get past that fear, because that fear, like if you ever had that uncertainty before, man, sometimes like if you ever had fear or anxiety about something, it can be really powerful. Okay, so I kind of ran out of time. I'm at 20 minutes, 15 seconds here. But in the next video, we'll talk about ways to now remove that emotion, right? Not remove that emotion, because you can't destroy an emotion, because that emotion is there to protect you. That emotion is there to help you and facilitate and incentivize certain behaviors over others. So if we can just gain control, choice, power over our emotions, then we can change what we're afraid of and what we're not afraid of based on what we want and the system of reason and evidence, and if you want to say logic or whatever. Now reason and logic is just a system as well, but we can get into that. But we can use those things and actually take control, and then make it super easy to step out on that whim, step out on trust to get the things that we want, and actually exemplify the things without sitting there just hitting that wall over and over and over, and it can be very frustrating. So that will be in the next video, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you have experienced in terms of beliefs, in terms of changing or experiencing the conflict with others, because I know that can be some fun experiences. But yeah, just comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Take care.